coming to you here with another edition of Cows and Quacks exclusively on 12-ounce sports radio. Joined always is my co-host, Mr. Tim Alcorn. Give it up for the people, Tim.
Man, what a big win for you last week. I was so proud of the Ducks. You know, we knew they were talented. We knew they had lots of talent, but they went in the shoe, and we both called it pretty close.
You know, the game went, like you said, in a lot of ways, and like I said in a lot of ways. Figured it would be about the ground game for Oregon. I got to first give it up to C.J. Stroud, Ohio State's quarterback. Hell of a kid. He's a true freshman. He had one mistake in the game, and it cost them the game. But Oregon from the onset was engaged. Did it without Justin Flo, who is out for the season, unfortunately. Did it without Kayvon Thibodeau. And, you know, we play Stony Brook this week. You know, KT should get a lot of rest, which would be nice. We don't need to play him this game.
I'll tell you something. Your team is stacked for a national title run. Anthony Brown is the quarterback that you need right now. You need an experienced. I'm glad you didn't go with your rookie. We did that in Texas, and it cost us.
Yeah. Yeah, man. First of all, I do want to explain my voice. I'm not sick. I feel great. In fact, you can't keep me from smiling after that win. And I just got a little excited, man. The kickoff was at 9 a.m. I got FaceTimed by about 4 or 5 different Duck fans that wanted to do a pregame shot with me at freaking 8 o'clock in the morning. So I'm taking whiskey shots like a complete degenerate at 8 o'clock in the morning. And then my lovely wife bought me this Oktoberfest Pilsner, which is my favorite beer. And there was a cold Stein in the freezer, so I filled it up and was like, I guess I'm having beer for breakfast. And she goes, I'll go get us some food. I'll be right back. She was back 3 hours later, and I was pretty hammered when C.J. Verdell hit the 77-yard touchdown run up the gut on Ohio State. I'm pretty sure I punted my kid's toy across the house, was screaming at the top of my lungs, and strained my vocal cords. And if you ask me if I have any regrets, the answer is no. It was amazing. So,
you know, Verdell's. I think he's going to be a good pro too.
Verdell, yeah, you know, he's an interesting guy. He didn't really see the field much last year. He was kind of dinged up a little bit. A year prior to that, in 2019, he came on the scene late, where Washington State, he had a pretty huge run, and then he started really grinding, beat the snot out of Utah, and then had a big game for us in the Rose Bowl. And he's one of those backs where he's taken a little bit to get his field vision, and he's not like a Michael James kind of quarterback or running back where he sees the holes before they're there. He's getting better about that, and that's what you saw on Saturday was he's trusting his line to do it. And the O-line, I mean, those guys played an incredible game. They protected Brown. They made humongous holes for the run game. In my opinion, that was the difference maker between Fresno State and this last week with Oregon was the O-line.
We know with CJ, one thing I've known and been told my whole life is you can't teach speed.
No, you can't. You either got it or you don't, man. You either got it or you don't.
And he's got it.
Oh, he does. He's got it in spades. So about your game, tell me about what went on with Texas. Tell me about what happened, what you saw, and what you think he needs to improve.
I saw enough to get drunk. It was just a matter of the SEC crowds are just different, man. Those southern folks know how to party. They know how to scream. They know how to yell. And Hudson Card he wasn't ready for it. I mean, it was deer in the headlights, as we say, and he just wasn't ready for prime time. And going into a standing room only crowd at Arkansas, that's prime time. And an Arkansas team that they think is back. And Arkansas got a lead. Hudson couldn't come on the field. The one thing they did is, from the get-go, they said, if you're going to beat us, you're going to beat us with Hudson Card's arm. Bijan Robinson's not going to beat us. And he couldn't hit the side of a barn. And we've already brought Casey Thompson in for this week. He's going to be a starter. He won't give him up. And he's got a big arm. And people are going to take this blueprint. Every team is going to crowd, put 8 in the box. And the difference is Casey can do that 50, 60-yard bomb. That frees it up where they can't have an eight-man front. It's going to be a little different with Casey Thompson. And they should have brought him in at the end of the first quarter. They brought him in when the game was over.
I'm going to ask you a tough question. Okay? And I don't mean to sound like a smart ass when I say this, so take this with a grain of salt. Out here in the Pac-12, we had a nickname for Sarkisian. It was 7-win Sark, because that's as far as he ever got with Washington and as far as he ever got with USC. Do you, from what you've seen so far, do you feel like that's a little harsh and a little premature to judge him based on this loss alone?
Yeah, I think it's I was watching Scott Van Pelt, who I really love on Sports Center, and he was talking about, and we'll get into this too, but he was talking about how USC is not relevant anymore.
They're not.
And he said it's been 15 years since Texas beat them in the Rose Bowl, and he said here's the problem, and this makes a lot of sense. He said, the Tom Hermans, the PJ Fleck, he said there's a lot of good coaches out there. The problem is it's hard to find a great coach. And that made so much sense to me. It's hard to find a great coach.
Yeah, it really is.
And that fits the system you want. And now I'm not saying that Sark, I'm not going to say they may go on a 9-0 streak from here. Who knows? But and the other thing is Arkansas has, their massive O-line is ridiculous. And they rushed for 333 yards, brother. And you ain't going to lose too many games when you rush for 333 yards.
No, not too much, man. Speaking of wins and losses, just so you know, you did go 4-1 with your picks last week.
Yeah, I sure wish I had one in a different direction.
I know you did. I went 3-2. You're leading the season 17-7. I'm at 14-10. To me, this has been a very difficult year to pick so far. And there's only been a couple times I've been 100% sure of my pick. Last week was one of them. I didn't waver from that, but man, this is getting confusing.
Where do you think? Do you think that getting back at USC, firing Helton?
Yeah,
man, there's a lot of memes out there. Do you think that even though they had to buy him out, which USC's got more money than God, would they go after Urban Myers?
I don't know. That's a legit question. I mean, if he does that to Jacksonville, you're talking about he'll never work in the NFL.
I'll say this: he should have when the Longhorns were throwing buckets of money at him, and he went the pro route, and my Texans are not going to be very good, and they just manhandled Jacksonville. So it's a different animal going from college to pros. Let's see.
Yeah, I would be surprised if anything happens this season. Either way, I would be surprised if USC names a head coach. I'm really shocked they did this 2 games into the year. Stanford beat the living snot out of them, though, man. I watched the game. It was not even competitive, But as far as their win against San Jose State, San Jose State was going to compete. USC is just, I agree with SVP. They're not relevant. They're just not. And they're not going to be able to get back to relevance quickly. The thing that's changed is no one's afraid of USC. They used to be. Walking into the Coliseum used to be a death sentence. No pun intended. You used to go into that game going, man, we're going to get our asses kicked by USC. Now, no one flinches at it. You got Oregon, Stanford, any team goes in there feels like they have a legit shot, and it's not anything what it was even 10 years ago, and so to me, USC has taken a dramatic step back. When Pete Carroll left, that was the end of them, and I get there were some sanctions and some stuff that happened, but I mean they could have survived that with the right coach. And Pete Carroll was that dude. He really was.
Now, if the NIL would have been in place back then, those sanctions wouldn't have happened, and USC is still a powerhouse.
Yeah.
And I don't blame Pete Carroll for going to Seattle because, well, look what he's done.
Yeah.
But Van Pelt is right. Great coaches that just happen to fit the right perfect team is hard to find. I think you've finally got it in Oregon. I know Alabama has it. I believe Florida has it. I don't know if he's great, but he's pretty close to great. And UCLA may have it.
Chip Kelly's starting to really turn the tide. They got a big game this week too, which we'll get into in a second. I want to take us back to Texas and talk about your game against Rice this week. These games after losses, especially where you get your butt kicked, are some of the most important games in college football. Rice is not anything at all. But, at the same time, though, this is an opportunity for players to get their mojo back, right? And that's really what is most important about this week for Texas, in my opinion, is getting back to your identity, knowing who you are, renewing your belief in your brothers around you, your staff, your coaches, and everyone, and starting to get that wind at your back. Because conference play is coming up, and it's not going to get any easier for Texas. It's just not. And if you're already having issues with buy-in because you didn't win a game, or you're feeling down on yourself. I mean, football is as much mental as it is physical. And you have to be mentally prepared to take a win. And if you're not in it because you don't buy into the new coach or whatever the case might be, I mean, I'm speculating. You got a rough thing coming. I mean, you play Rice and then you play Texas Tech, which is very capable of beating you. And then you play at TCU, Oklahoma State, Baylor, Iowa State, Kansas, who's weirdly enough not looking too bad, West Virginia, Kansas State to finish the season. You got to get your head right. If it's not, you really got to get engaged.
I believe Casey Thompson will come in and he'll look for some big shots downfield. Of course, look for Bijan to bounce back. He's not going to have 69 yards this week. They'll probably play him for maybe 2 quarters, maybe 3 quarters. Then they'll pull him. I expect Casey Thompson to have a big week with his arm, big week with his leg. And I'm going to say he throws for 5 touchdown passes. I think I'll go ahead and give you my prediction. I think Texas wins 58-17.
I'll take that. I mean, I was going to say this better be an absolute drumming. Stony Brook, little team coming out of Long Island, New York, coming on out west to play the Ducks. FCS programs had a little bit of success in the recent history. They won their conference a couple times, went to their playoffs. This game, following up Ohio State, my only real concern in this game is you come off the biggest win in the program's history in Ohio State, coming in to play an FCS team. Fortunately, we're not playing like a North Dakota State kind of FCS team that's really good that could play at a Division I level. So I don't think Oregon really has much to be concerned with this week.
No.
Things I want to see. I don't want Kayvon playing.
No, that's what I was saying. Don't play Thibodeau. There's absolutely no reason to play him. There's absolutely the only good thing that can happen is he don't get hurt. That's it.
Yeah.
So you can't play him. And that's great. It's like you have an off week and the only thing I don't personally have is I don't have it a shutout. I have it 70-3.
Yeah, I try to do some research on Stony Brook because I don't really know much about them. I mean, they're based out of New York and they're an FCS team. I mean, how often would you really know much about a team like that? Excuse me.
They've actually had a couple good teams.
Yeah. About 4 years ago, they had a pretty good team. So to me, I'm gonna take this at Oregon putting up. I think they're gonna pull starters mid-third quarter at the latest. We might get a chance to see a couple of these quarterbacks we've been hearing about on the bench, which would be interesting. I want to see third-string running backs. As a junkie fan, that's what I'm tuning in for. I want to see our depth chart, how they play in different packages. You're going to see a little bit of experiment because it's going to be more like a competitive scrimmage, if anything else. You're going to see some different looks and a lot of different personnel. Let the starters get healthy because it's a long grind in the Pac-12. You got to play 9 straight conference games against very competitive teams, 10 including the Pac-12 championship, and to get to the playoffs, it's going to take everybody being healthy for the most part. So this isn't a game that you really, you don't really want to gamble on. You just want to go out, perform well, close it out by halftime, and be done with it. Score for me. I honestly have Oregon shutting them out. And I don't normally pick shutouts, but this defense from Oregon's as good as anyone in the country. And I think they're going to be fired up. Oregon's back to national prominence in the spotlight. It's the first time that's happened really since Mariota was there. We were ranked this high. I have us coming in. I'm gonna put it at like 58-0. I don't think Cristobal is gonna run the score up on these guys. There's no reason to do that. I just think he wants the defense to execute on the level, and this defense is deep, brother, like really deep. So it's going to be a wave after wave of elite talent, and I just don't see Stony Brook being able to move the ball on us at all. So, yeah, I feel bad. I actually kind of feel bad for the Stony Brook kids. I'm sure they're great kids. This will be a really good test for them, and a lot of times these FCS teams when they come in and play big time opponents, it does help them in their other schedules. Because they get the experience to be able to see what a team like that plays like. And,
it helps them for recruiting and helps them for about $1 million.
Yeah, well, there's that. They're making their money.
I mean, that's a big payday, man.
I want to talk about this next game because this next game's sneaky good, and I put it on the schedule for a reason. Notre Dame is the biggest fraud in the last 20 years of college football. True or false?
I'm going to go false just because they have good teams. They just can't beat the elite of the elite.
They have good teams that can't beat anyone. Yeah,
They beat Clemson last year when Clemson was number 1.
They did. They did beat Clemson. And where did they end up? Where did Notre Dame go?
I don't know. Where did they play? Alabama?
Something like that.
Yeah.
Notre Dame.
Greenbow, Alabama.
Alabama.
They have stopped a few teams before. Notre Dame's competitive, and year in and year out they're competitive. And I know you don't like that Coach Kelly, but he wins a lot of games.
Hold on. Let me explain something here.
Could he go to USC?
No, they're not going to take a Notre Dame coach at USC. That'd be like Oregon hiring a Washington coach or vice versa. It just wouldn't happen. Anyway, hold on. I have to explain something about why I don't like Notre Dame. And it has nothing to do with necessarily Notre Dame itself. It is the preferential treatment they get with them barely eking out successful seasons year after year. That's what drives me crazy about Notre Dame. I get there, my grandpa saw a really good Notre Dame team. That's cool. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. Like, they're playing Purdue, who beat a pretty decent Oregon State team. I think Oregon State's gonna be an 8-win team this year. They beat UConn. They beat the brakes off UConn. I mean, UConn is having the worst year that I think I've seen a team have in a long time.
I'll tell you something that I'm gonna tell you from my view. As long as I've been doing the show with you, Notre Dame has good seasons every year. You just can't stand them because they eke out wins like 21-20 and shit like that. It's just
I can't stand them. I can't stand them because they eke out wins versus teams like Toledo at home, 32-29. Tim, what the hell is Toledo doing, even competing against Notre Dame at that level? Doesn't make any sense. That's what I don't like about them. I don't like that they keep a top 10, top 12, top 15 ranking, and they are barely beating subdweller teams. Like, that to me is inexcusable. Like, I don't care your name's Notre Dame and you have Rudy and all this other cool shit that's happened in the past. That's irrelevant. Like, if Oregon were to only eke out wins the rest of the way against losing teams, there's no way that we would have a ranking as high as we do. We have to beat people like Ohio State in their field just to get noticed on a national level. So that's what drives me crazy as a football fan. Is it's like, listen, I get Notre Dame takes up the Chicago market, East Coast market, and a lot of attention. But for crying out loud, you're barely beating a freaking Toledo team. Like, Florida State, I'll give you, is a legit win. That was a great win. But like, Toledo, like, what the hell are you doing? Like what? Anyway, Notre Dame plays Purdue this week. Purdue, I think, is a sneaky tough team from what I've seen.
They always play them good.
And they always play them good. I think Purdue actually has more of a chance than people understand in this game, just because of the style of football that they play. And I'm going to go first. I do think Notre Dame ekes out another win, but I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be something like maybe like 23-20. I think Purdue's going. I think Purdue's going to be right there with them. But don't worry, Tim. Notre Dame is gonna move up in their rankings next week. Watch.
Hey, that's crazy. Look at my score. Notre Dame 24-21.
Something like we might know a little bit.
Yeah.
Bring us in this next game, because this next game is also going to be very, very competitive.
Yeah, Fresno State, who is a good little team, going in to see Chip Kelly and play number 13 UCLA.
UCLA back, getting very close to the top 10. I went back and because I'm an absolute fiend for college football, especially Oregon ball. I went back and I watched how Fresno State played Oregon, and then I watched how Oregon played against Ohio State. And there are a lot of differences. Oregon opened up the playbook dramatically last week, like I kind of figured they would, and their defense opened up the playbook a lot too, so it was a different game. But Fresno State has very athletic receivers. They have a really competent quarterback. This guy does not make very many mistakes. He's really accurate and delivers a great ball, throws open his receivers a lot, understands placement and time, which is a sneaky underrated skill level. You know, being able to just have a cannon for an arm is great, but like being accurate and knowing where a play is going and anticipating what the defense is doing to be able to throw the ball where your guy eventually will be open in the split second, that's really hard to do. Like, really hard. And he's got everything any quarterback I've seen all year has. You know, the talent's there. Their defense is going to struggle in this game, I honestly believe. UCLA's got a really strong run game. Their quarterback, DTR, really hasn't put together a full game yet, so it should be interesting to see if he can. If he does, look out, right? Because that's going to be a whole nother level. But, yeah, man, this can be really competitive. I'm actually really excited to watch this game.
Yeah, I think, people think of Chip Kelly and air raid and throwing that ball around, but he always has a good run offense, man.
He's always been able to put together, yeah, he really has.
Yeah. And I'll go first on this one. I got UCLA winning 38-26.
Yeah, that's just about where I put it at. I had UCLA 35-30. I honestly think this will be a fourth quarter game. No one in the East Coast is going to be up to watch it. The kickoff's at 7:45 out here out west. But this is going to be a tough game. I honestly believe that. And UCLA, I truly believe they'll be prepared, but they're going to get challenged. They're going to get challenged this game. And I think that'll speak volumes about how close the game really was against Oregon too. Bring us into our next game too, man. I want to hear.
This is a good matchup. This is a good matchup that I've probably changed my mind on 6 times already. It's number 19 Arizona State University going in to play number 23 BYU, and I'm not sure they shouldn't be a little higher.
I think BYU absolutely should be higher. I think ASU shouldn't even be ranked. I mean, They struggled against UNLV last week. That was pathetic. BYU is an interesting team for me. They really are. I don't quite know what to make of them. I watched a little bit of the Holy War. It was on the same time the Oregon game was on, so I didn't really get a chance to get into it all that much. What I know about BYU, regardless of what year it is or who's on the team, is they are always going to be a physical team. They always are. It doesn't matter if they're ranked, if they're 0-10 or they're 10-0. They will beat you up front. I just don't see ASU as being as physical. I'm taking BYU straight up in this thing, man. I got them winning this thing 34-17. I think they're going to beat.
Yeah, I have it 24-17, and forgive me, I don't know the BYU coach. Great coach, great man. I think that he's committed to BYU long term, and I just can't remember his name, but I could see USC making a run.
Maybe, yeah.
He's a good coach, a real good coach.
There's a lot of recruiting that goes on in Utah that people don't understand. I mean, that's where all the flows are, or the Sewells are from. They got a kid in the NFL now. They have another kid that plays for Utah. We have another one of their brothers that play for us. A huge pedigree, and American Samoa ends up in Utah a lot, and those are big boys, man. They play great football. And so,
I got something. I don't think I mentioned this on the podcast. I mean, on the radio show. But you remember their lead receiver last year was named Dax Milne, Milne. The founder of my company. It's his grandson, so I personally know someone in the NFL now. He made the Washington Redskins roster at wide receiver. That's pretty cool.
That is really cool. Good for him, man. That's not easy to do.
No. Not many people in there, in that club.
No. So, Bo Nix is back being ranked at Auburn. What is he? He's a junior now?
Yeah, junior. Yeah. Maybe a senior. No, I think he's a junior.
Junior, yeah. Number 22 Auburn going into play number 10 Penn State, who's off to a great start this year. This game is very intriguing to me. I'm inclined to go with Penn State because of packed Happy Valley. They're playing very, very physical offense and defense so far this year. But there's just something about Auburn that always makes me want to pick them. And I can't ignore it. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but it's just this weird itch in my brain where I'm like, Auburn, they're always right there in the mix of it. Like, they lose games they shouldn't lose, they win games they shouldn't win, and they're always just a tough team, man. I don't think this will be a walk in the park for Penn State at all. I think it's gonna be a really tough game.
Yeah, what you got on it?
I want to hear your pick. I'm not decided yet. This is like a coin flip.
I'm going to go, this is great offense against a great defense. I'm a believer in Penn State. What I saw they did to Wisconsin, I'm going to go 32-28 Penn State.
Yeah, sorry, Auburn fans. I know a lot of you do listen to our show, War Eagle and all that, and I love you guys. But I think Tim's right, and Tim, they held Wisconsin at 10 points on their own field.
Yeah.
They held Ball State to 13 points. I don't know if they can do that, but here's what I'll say. This game will be about how effective Bo Nix is. If he can make plays, which will have to be with his feet out of the pocket, they got a shot. But if they can't do that, Penn State's going to just maul them. Penn State might be the best team in the Big Ten this year. We just don't even know it yet. I tell
you what, and that's a tough place to go play.
That is as rowdy of an environment as you will ever see. I'm going to take similar score. I'm taking Penn State in that one too. Another great team that is going to be in the Big 12 starting very soon. Number 8, Cincy at Indiana. And Indiana's had a little rougher of a start than we thought they would this season, but I still think they're a very talented ball club.
I want to say something, and I've been talking about them all year, but my eye test is that Cincinnati can play with anybody. I mean, Cincinnati's a good team. I think they still have a shot to go in the playoffs. I think they're for real.
Well, this game's going to prove a lot about that. Indiana's got speedsters on the outside. They can make plays on offense. They can really get things going, which is also a testament to how great Iowa's doing this year and what they've been able to accomplish. Looking ridiculous at the same time, but they still win. I'm going to take Cincy in this game because I think they're a lot more complete than people realize. They've been building to this for the last few years, and we've seen it. But I'm taking Cincy in this game, but I would not be surprised at all to see this be very competitive going into the late stages of the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I have a 31-24 match.
Yeah, I could see that. Touchdown differential there. Talk to us about, so a lot of us out west might not remember what kind of a rivalry this next game was. Tell us about Nebraska-Oklahoma rivalry. You're a Big 12 dude. Give me the history real quick.
Growing up, the University of Houston and University of Texas, they were in the Southwest Conference. Well, back then you had it was the Big 8, not the Big 10, not the Big 12, but not the Big 12 they went to, Big 8. And every year the game of the year to decide who played in the bowl game for the national championship was Nebraska versus Oklahoma. Because they would always win the rest of their games except for that one. And it's gone on from there. I'm glad to see them playing. I think Oklahoma started slow, but they're getting it going, and Oklahoma's a good team. I don't think Scott Frost has Nebraska back yet. I don't know how much longer they're going to give him. What do you think?
If you would have asked me that after their loss to Illinois, I would have totally agreed with you. The fact of the matter is, since then they held their opponents to 10 points, and they've scored roughly 80 points. Yeah, 80 points exactly. Yeah. Granted, they played nobody since then. I mean, they played 2 pickup games, but how do I put this? Oklahoma's defense is horrible. Like, they just is. Like, and I said this on Twitter, and I mean it. If you lined up Oregon right now and Oklahoma, I confidently would pick Oregon by 20 in that game. Just for the sheer fact that we can play defense and they can't. Not that Oklahoma wouldn't score on Oregon, but, they're not going to stop us.
You know what? You may get a chance to find out.
I hope, oh God, I hope to God we get that first round. That would be a dream for me, to avoid having to play Ohio State again and avoid Alabama or Clemson and be able to have a good, clean, easy win against Oklahoma. Just to shut up.
I don't think Ohio State's getting in.
I mean, dude, they got a tough schedule, but I wouldn't put it past them. It's Ohio State. All right, back to this game. Listen, Oklahoma's winning this game, but I don't think it's going to be by much. I think that this is going to be a very high-scoring, high-tempo game. I think that the athleticism on the other side of the ball from Nebraska is going to be the determining factor. That's why I have them. But I have this game big score, man. I think it's going to be something like 52 to 40, some high-scoring, high-tempo game. But I think in the end, Oklahoma definitely has the athletes to compete for that long. Nebraska just doesn't.
I think it's going to be a lower-scoring game. Still some points scored, but I think Oklahoma wins 34-17.
Yeah, I want to see Nebraska compete. I want them to have a win like this. It's hard. I just haven't seen anything from Frost that would lead me to believe they're even in that, going down that road.
Upset them would go a long way towards securing his future.
Yeah, no kidding, man. Game of the week here. Alabama, number 1, clear number 1. In fact, I was talking to my buddy Josh about this over the weekend. It feels like everyone's competing for number 2 right now, because Alabama's really the best team anywhere, by a far margin at this point of the season.
But yet they kind of struggled against Mercer last week. They played a shitty game.
Dude, did they even play their starters?
I don't know. They didn't play very well. One of our listeners, Greg, he's the hugest Alabama fan, and he said it was worst game management, but like the worst possible outcome playing Mercer. So
Worst
they didn't look
possible
very
outcome.
good.
Hold on. Hold on.
But I mean, but they let Mercer score on them, and I'll tell you what, and I'll go first on this one. Saban wasn't happy about what went down on Saturday. The team they're supposed to beat 70-0. I guarantee you this week's been as hard a week as those Alabama players will ever have in practice. He's pissed off. And even going to the swamp, I have an Alabama 41, Florida 24.
Listen, they gave up 14 points to Mercer.
Okay, Mercer.
Who cares? Like it's 14. It's not like you said they're scoring left and right. I looked at the score.
Turning over the ball. I mean, they didn't look good. They didn't look crisp. And I'm sure we could find tape of Saban saying the same thing. They didn't look crisp.
Nick Saban.
But they will this week. I promise you.
Nick Saban is Nick Saban. And there is not a chance in hell that this team is not going to be ready for this game against Florida. And I'm sure Florida is going to have some tricks up their sleeve. I wouldn't even expect this game to not. I wouldn't be surprised if this game was competitive. Florida has they're a good team. Like, this is not like a walk in the park for Alabama, but for the crying out loud, Tim, they beat Miami 44-13. They beat Mercer 40-14. They're gonna beat Florida something probably along the lines of 30-10. It's Alabama and it's 3 games in, and Nick Saban's losing his mind. This team's gonna be ready. Absolutely.
Alabama. I was thinking about this, and Saban. Man, he's high quality, dedicated, incredible recruiter. I'm not certain of all the coaches in any sport ever, if he don't have a conversation as the greatest coach ever in any sport.
Oh no, I put him right up there with Coach K at Duke. I put him right up there with what's his name, Phil Jackson. I put him right in those conversations with. I mean, he's the greatest football coach ever. What he's consistently been able to do, to me, is remarkable. I mean, there's a reason why coaches go there to study what he does and then go on and have success other places.
And the thing about it is he's so good at what he does, and their teams are so good. But it's not like an Ohio State. I don't hate Alabama. I like Alabama. Yeah. I like what he brings to the table. I like what he demands out of his players, and it's just very commendable.
Well, that's just it. You nailed it. It doesn't have the same feel that an Ohio State has, right? Ohio State runs a very excellent program. I mean, one of the best ever in college football, but you hate them. Alabama is running the best program that's ever existed, and you don't hate them. Even if you get your ass kicked by them, which nobody wants to have happen, you still don't hate them, and that's the biggest difference. And I think a lot of it comes down to Nick Saban being as excellent as he is with coaching young men, and really having a heart for the young men, and
demanding that he takes those boys and makes men out of them when they leave for the NFL.
He just has it. As homer as this is going to sound, I see similar traits in Mario Cristobal. After the game against Ohio State in the flight back, instead of Mario being on Twitter or, chumming it up or whatever, he went to each player on the plane, sat with them, talked to them about their goals, how to get better, each individual goals. He sat down and reviewed it with them, went through and talked to each person on the plane and got their focus back in line. Like, hey, great win. We got a lot left to go. Like, let's get refocused. Let's get into this. This is what you want to accomplish this year. And so I'm going to read an excerpt from the article here because I thought it was really a good testament to what kind of how do I put it? Just the kind of personality that this coach brings. And this is directly from him coaching under Saban. And this is really fantastic. Cristobal said, when he played at first of all, that Cristobal goes through, and a lot of the Sabanism that comes from is really just connecting with the players, right? Understanding what it takes to remind them of what their goals are and to keep them focused. And the quote he said when he played at Miami under Jimmy Johnson, who was no slouch, Jimmy Johnson said, "You're either going to get better or worse. You ain't going to stay the same. It doesn't exist and it doesn't happen." And so when I hear those kind of stories about Mario and the limited interactions I've been fortunate enough to have with him, and him even remembering details about me, and I'm nobody, and at all of any consequence whatsoever, it leads me to believe that this guy has learned the secret Nick Saban has, which is you take care of your men, you take care of your players, you take care of the fans, and you take care of the alumni, and you show you care and you're authentic. You have a winning personality for the program. And it's impressive to see firsthand at Oregon, but it's not any surprise that he's emulating what Nick Saban has been doing for a while now and what Nick Saban's getting right, which is why you love Nick Saban and why you want to beat him, of course, because we're competitive. It's football, but you respect the hell out of the guy. And real quick, too, I know Mario's name's going to come up with this USC coaching search. I'm going to just confidently call it right now. There is not a chance in hell he's taking the job at USC. Not a chance. If he was money motivated, he would have gone to Miami when that job opened up. He played there, won a national championship there, and he's an excellent head coach. He would have gone. But he's building something in Oregon that is absolutely remarkable and something that he can sustain long term. And he's not going to deal with people breathing down his neck like he would at an Alabama or at an USC, where he's got this donor base that is going to demand national championship every single year from him. Now that doesn't mean that he doesn't want that for himself, but there's a big difference in not dealing with that outside noise on a monthly basis. So and so donors here, they donated $2 million, they want to speak to you. He doesn't have to deal with that at Oregon. So yeah, he has something unique. He's not going anywhere, Tim.
Yeah, I don't think so. I'm wondering if Saban's talking about going back to Saban. I wonder if he'll ever lose to an assistant.
Might get a shot. Might be Oregon.
Might get a shot. He might get a shot this year, brother.
Might get a shot. We will be back next week. We have I'm looking at the schedule. We got quite a few games to talk about next week. A lot of ranked teams playing. A really good game might be the game of the week. I'm looking at Texas A&M versus Arkansas, taking place up in Arlington, so that's going to be kind of a cool game. And West Virginia playing Oklahoma. Arizona, we open Pac-12 play against them. Y'all got who? Anybody good next week? Who's Texas? Texas Tech.
Texas Tech. Yeah,
that's a barn burner.
It's a fun little game.
It's a barn burner. I will be back. I will be back.
It's a high-scoring game.
It is. I will be back with a voice, I promise. But until then.